Summer weekends in California were always a delight for Michael. He eagerly anticipated these days to drive down to the coast and immerse himself in the invigorating, cool waters of the ocean. The scorching heat was intense, with temperatures consistently above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Even the aging Peugeot's air conditioner struggled to keep up. Michael followed the coastal route to his favorite spot, St. James Lagoon. This secluded lagoon was off the beaten path, away from the typical tourist destinations. To reach it, one had to park by the roadside and navigate through a forest filled with protruding roots and rocks, posing a challenge for inexperienced hikers. Upon arrival, Michael turned off the car engine and was instantly hit by the sweltering heat. It felt as if he was under a magnifying glass, perspiration pouring from his body. He wasted no time preparing for the beach. Familiar with the route, he embarked on a picturesque morning stroll through the vibrant and arid woods. The scent of leaves and a gentle breeze heightened his anticipation of the ocean. With a cheerful bounce, he maneuvered through the roots and rocks, reaching his destination in just 15 minutes. The lagoon appeared serene and unoccupied, radiating incredible beauty. The turquoise water gently kissed the pebbles along the shore, while pleasant waves formed on the sea's surface due to the wind. With haste, Michael unpacked his belongings and changed into his beach attire. The main challenge was the relentless sun, as there was no shade available in the bay. He retrieved a small collapsible tent from his backpack, primarily designed for shade despite its modest size. Crafted from thick fabric, it fulfilled its primary purpose effectively. As always, Michael carried a sandwich and a bottle of soda with him. His plan was to swim for a few hours, enjoy a meal, and bask in the sun. Typically, this routine lasted 3 to 4 hours, ensuring he had sufficient provisions. After an invigorating swim, he would eagerly consume the sandwich, satisfying his hunger. This time, he had brought along his snorkel and flippers, allowing him to observe the local marine life up close. Michael enjoyed swimming near the rocks and discovering the hidden world beneath the water's surface. Although not as diverse as the Caribbean, the underwater scenery was still captivating. With his backpack and clothes safely stored in the tent, he made his way towards the water. The initial steps were as chilly as always, and as the water reached his thighs, he had an urge to yell. However, Michael knew that a refreshing reward awaited him, so he bravely immersed himself in the water. He plunged into the water to explore the depths below. The crystal-clear water resembled bottled water rather than the sea, allowing him a clear view of the seabed. He observed sea urchins and small fish gracefully swimming back and forth. While swimming along the side, Michael spotted a relatively large crab. He quickly surfaced to catch a breath and swam towards it for a closer look. The crab turned out to be smaller than he initially thought, but still fascinating. The area was teeming with fish, and the sea urchins covered the entire seabed. It was crucial not to touch them. After about 30 minutes of swimming, the wind began to pick up. Michael found himself roughly 30 meters away from the shore as he surfaced for another breath. He noticed a surprising sight. Large fish started appearing beneath him, fueling his excitement as he repeatedly dived back into the water. another 15 minutes or so went by in this manner. During one of his resurfacing moments, a wave suddenly engulfed him, catching him off guard. The surprise momentarily took his breath away, triggering a surge of adrenaline. Michael was a proficient swimmer, but such unexpected moments can unsettle anyone. Remaining calm was paramount. He knew that panicking would only worsen the situation. He focused on relaxing and swimming once more. With determination, he propelled himself towards the water's surface, struggling against the swirling waves. When he finally emerged, he was taken aback. The pleasant sunny day had transformed into an overcast sky, accompanied by strong winds. The drastic weather change seemed unfathomable, as if only a few minutes had elapsed. Realizing the severity of the situation, he made the decision to swim back to shore as swiftly as possible. Despite the challenging waves, he could discern the cove and vigorously paddled towards it. His flippers proved to be of great assistance. After a few minutes of intense swimming, Michael noticed that the shore wasn't getting any closer. An ominous feeling washed over him. He intensified his swimming efforts, desperately trying to reach the safety of the lagoon. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized he was being carried further out into the sea. Remaining calm became even more critical. He repeated this mantra to himself, reminding him to keep rowing, but not to exhaust himself to the point of risking drowning. Adopting a breaststroke technique, he conserved energy while maintaining a reasonable speed. Suddenly, a rock emerged nearby. It was a common sight in this region, with isolated rocks and small islands dotting the coastline. Exhaustion was taking its toll on him, and he understood that, despite the danger, his best chance was to cling onto the rock. The ocean waves gently carried him closer to the rock, without requiring much effort on his part, which was a relief as he was nearly depleted of energy. To get a better view of the rock, he took off his mask and let it hang around his neck. With the arrival of a wave, he attempted to grab onto a ledge but was pulled back. Fearing a collision, he proceeded cautiously. The following wave brought him even nearer, and he could even feel the rock with his foot. However, he was once again thrust away. Focusing all his concentration, he paddled as the next wave approached, gradually drawing nearer to the rock. After a moment, he felt the warm and slippery surface beneath his body, gripping the ledge tightly. He managed to stay on the rock as the wave receded. It was a triumph. He swiftly pulled himself up and extended his leg to climb higher. His main concern now was waiting for the storm to pass so he could safely swim back to shore. But before he could contemplate his next move, a massive wave crashed against him, inflicting a sharp pain in his chest. He found himself back in the water, and as he surfaced, all he could see was a rock hurtling towards his face. In the next instant, darkness enveloped him. When Michael regained consciousness, he was overcome by a severe headache. Opening his eyes, he was greeted by darkness and the sound of water. He assumed he must be dead and headed straight for the watery depths of some infernal afterlife, if such a thing existed. However, When water entered his nostrils and he coughed, he suddenly realized he was still alive. Lying on the shore among the pebbles, he felt a downpour drenching him. The darkness had intensified, and he summoned his strength to crawl on his knees toward the rocks, where the waves could not reach. There, he lost consciousness once more, alternating between brief periods of awareness and lapses into unconsciousness. He had no concept of how much time had passed, his location, or the severity of his injuries, but he could breathe. Even though his head throbbed with pain, being alive was the only thing that mattered. Upon awakening, the atmosphere was dreary. Rain was pouring, and Michael realized he was shivering from the cold. Determined to find help, he stood up and surveyed his surroundings. It was an expanse of rocks and trees. Clearly, he was not in his familiar cove. He needed to move quickly in search of other people. He discarded his flippers and mask. Rain lashed against his face, obscuring his vision. Michael briskly walked along the shoreline, trying to discern his whereabouts. Traversing pebbles and clambering over rocks, he hoped to catch sight of lights or signs of human presence around the bend. Eventually, he reached a large rock shaped like an arch, marking the end of the beach. For some reason, he felt an aversion to swimming. He turned and proceeded in the opposite direction. The rain grew increasingly intense, and he was determined to find someone or gain a sense of his location. He practically jogged along the beach, surrounded by nothing but rocks. After a couple of minutes, he reached another endpoint where the beach terminated. With a cluster of rocks and the now tumultuous sea stretching out before him like an inky, cacophonous void. He made a decision to scale the rocks to gain a better vantage point. Despite the darkness, his eyes, accustomed to the lack of light, allowed him to see reasonably well. He climbed a series of rocks and eventually reached the summit. In the distance, he could make out the lights of a town shimmering on the sea, although they offered little solace at this moment. Turning his gaze to the left, he spotted a rock resembling an arch. Fear gripped him. He was stranded on an island. "Stay calm. Don't panic," Michael repeated to himself. He was shivering from the cold and feeling incredibly weak. He needed to take action. Giving up was not an option. He recalled all the survival stories he had read in books, watched in movies, and played in games. Two things became clear: fire and water were his main priorities. Water was abundant, albeit undrinkable. As he pondered his predicament, an unquenchable thirst welled up inside him. He was parched and had no immediate solution. Suddenly, it hit him. It was raining, pouring rain. He swiftly tilted his head up to the sky and opened his mouth. Raindrops began to fill his mouth, but it was clearly not enough. He needed a container, but what could he use? He hadn't brought any utensils or a cup with him. Thoughts raced through his mind, and then it struck him. He had flippers. He hurriedly retraced his steps to where he had left them. To his delight, one of the flippers had already collected rainwater. He eagerly drank from it, even though it didn't taste particularly pleasant. There was no time to be picky. After taking a few more satisfying sips, he refilled the flippers, realizing that his mask could also be inverted and used as a makeshift bowl. The water collected in it swiftly. A sense of relief washed over Michael. With water, he could sustain himself for a while. Anticipation for the morning began to build within him. Sleep was out of the question, so he wandered around the island to stave off the cold. When dawn broke, he was utterly fatigued and drained. But the rain had subsided, and as the sun's first rays appeared, Michael gratefully basked in its warmth. He hadn't savored a sunrise this much in ages. Stretching out on the rocks, as the comforting heat enveloped his body, he drifted into slumber. He awoke to the scorching heat. The midday sun was scalding his back, and he marveled at the whirlwind of sensations he had experienced in the past 24 hours. From bone-chilling cold to scorching heat, nonetheless, now he could survey his surroundings. Thankfully, the storm had passed, granting him excellent visibility. The good news was that the island wasn't too far from civilization. The bad news was that he couldn't physically swim several kilometers. His only option was to wait for a pleasure boat, which were abundant in the area, and signal for help. Fire. Finding fire was crucial, but where could he find the means to start one? It was a challenging task with limited resources. Rubbing sticks together was an option, but he had never tried it before. There was no room for hesitation. He scanned his surroundings for suitable sticks, and then his gaze fell upon his mask. He had used it to collect rainwater during the night and left it in the shade under the rocks. A spark of inspiration ignited in his mind. His snorkeling mask could act as a magnifying glass. Grateful for all the YouTube tutorials he had watched, demonstrating fire-making techniques with unconventional objects, he eagerly grabbed the mask. Selecting a dry branch, he focused the sunlight through the mask, patiently waiting. Within a few seconds, smoke began to rise. Michael felt a surge of excitement. Collecting as many dry branches as he could find, he spread them out on the rocks to further dry in the sun. His fire was soon ablaze. Now all he needed to do was feed it with additional branches. The fire would serve as a signal, increasing his chances of being rescued. Smoke billowed into the sky, and a sense of relief washed over Michael. Rescue was now just a matter of time. Not wanting to waste any more time, he set out to search for food. He knew there were likely crabs hiding beneath the rocks. He would eat anything at this point, but crabs would be a satisfying meal, especially if he could cook them quickly over the fire. The thought made his mouth water. Walking along the beach, he diligently overturned each rock, hoping to spot a crab or any other edible creature for breakfast. Excitement and hunger fueled his pace as he combed the shoreline. He had reached the end of the beach when he realized that finding breakfast wouldn't be as easy as he had hoped. Letting out a sigh, he glanced toward the sea. To his astonishment, he noticed a picturesque rock in the shape of an arch, near which a small yacht gently swayed in the waves. Tears welled up in his eyes, a mixture of surprise and gratitude. In that moment, he silently thanked those who, like him, sought solace and enjoyment in the cool waters of the ocean during the scorching summer heat.